And good morning, everyone. I am very excited to do my very first blog interview where we are having a live feed as well as um, I'll still be writing this up in the blog. I really appreciate Ann Kay, who has come in here to be the guinea pig, the first one to do one of these Dr. Sam's video interviews in addition to being a blog. So Ann Kay is doing the Rock and Read project, and my goodness, Ann Kay, could we begin by you telling us a little bit about yourself and then getting into the story of how the Rock and Read project works? Ann, take it away.
Thanks, Dr. Sam. It's great to be here in your inaugural video. I'm a longtime music teacher who knows now quite a bit about reading. The Rock and Read project started in 2014. But before that, I was a longtime teacher of children and instructor of teachers. And about 12 years ago, I discovered this product in Target, and it was called Singing Coach, and it was a singing and tune product. And so my sister-in-law bought it so we could try it out, and I thought, this is pretty cool. So I contacted the owner. The owner was a man who wanted to learn to sing and tune, couldn't, and owned a number of businesses down in Tampa as a businessman. Well, he hired someone to write him a singing and tune product, and it worked for him. But before he marketed it to the Targets and other stores, he did an all-call at his businesses, which have nothing to do with music or singing or reading or anything that we would be interested in as educators. He did an all-call for bad singers. Bad singers wanted to try out some software. And people came in and he said, take this home and see if it works for you. I'm thinking of marketing this. And so a woman came in and brought her daughter, who was 12 years old, Ashley, who was sang with the product, and the product gave a score out of 100 on singing accuracy, rhythm, and pitch. And it was just singing songs and singing a line for your voice compared to the pitch and rhythm of the song. Well, the woman came back with the daughter in 6 weeks and burst into tears, but they were happy tears because something had happened. A transformation of her daughter had happened. School called home and said, something's going on with your daughter. She was in special classes. She was not reading well. She was 12 years old. The teacher called home and said, have you hired a tutor? What's going on? All of a sudden, Ashley's reading fluently. And the mother said, no, we didn't hire any tutor. I don't know what it is. And so then they thought, well, is there anything new in your home? They said, well, she's singing with this singing thing every day after school. She just loves it. She comes home and sings for like an hour with it every day. And but just songs, it's singing in tune and singing in rhythm. So Carla was surprised. Could this have been something to do with reading? And so he went to Dr. Susan Holman at University of South Florida in Tampa, where he lives, and he said, would you run a study? So 4 or 5 studies later, Susan ran the first one, Dr. Holman ran the first one, and then Marie Biggs did a dissertation on it, and there were other studies showing that singing with this software yielded about a year of achievement gain in reading after about 13.5 hours. So 3 times a week for half an hour, 9 weeks. They were shocked. Dr. Susan Holman is now emeritus and was but a literacy specialist. So Carlo marketed the Singing Coach thing for singing and tune, but his focus became reading. And he launched a product from that original one called Tune Into Reading. 2014, we decided in Minnesota that we could maybe start a nonprofit having to do with singing to raise reading, and we would buy that software. We built a bus. We bought a MTC, retired MTC bus, Metro Transit, and we converted it into a mobile computer lab with 32 computers. And we took it to kids in their neighborhoods in the summer. And we had great achievement gain even in the summer. Kids coming onto the bus at the YMCA and a Minneapolis public school summer school. Well, with that, we got into schools. We got some corporate sponsorship. We got funding from Minneapolis Public Schools, and we started in a Minneapolis Public School with it. And we had great results. And so we now have gone to the legislature, and we got $100,000 to implement it in schools as a state pilot. And then we got 500,000 more. So we're still in that process. This is our last year of a state grant.
Okay, I'm going to butt in here and ask you about the next thing. We are in that time of, oh my gosh, research, research, research. Do you have some? And I know you do. And also being a really great fan of Tim Rosinski and the repeated readings, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the research and about how this might relate to what Tim does with the repeated readings, where he has a lot of research indicating that repeated readings help. So could you talk to us about research for a little bit? And I'll mention, by the way, that whatever research projects, research you mention, and this is research in really genuine journals, I'll be posting the PDF of all that on the site, on my site. So take it away. Prove to me that this works, but prove to me through research that it works. No personal opinions here. I want the research, and the research. Thank you.
There are about 4 or 5 studies, and Dr. Tim Rosinski is one of the authors on one of these studies. And these studies were of children using, actually, most of them were middle school students. The first study that I love was 8th graders reading at a 4th grade level. And they had them sing 3 times a week for half an hour for 9 weeks on this early Tune Into Reading product. And they found that the experimental group, there was a control group, experimental group went up 1.2 years on average in reading achievement. And I believe they used a closed test to measure that. And what I love about this study is they stopped the study after the 9 weeks. The control group did not make any significant achievement gain in that time. And they tested both groups at the end of the year then, after no more singing. And what they found was that the experimental group had gone up an additional 0.4, so 1.6 on average gain reading in years. And the control group ended the year still at a 4th grade level. So we all know that this seems impossible, but there are 4 or 5 controlled and well done research studies about this product.
Okay,
again,
perfect.
We're a nonprofit, you know, so we took that, we read the research and we thought, okay, let's get going on this.
Yeah, and that's what readers will, and I know my readers will now want to know what goes on at your site. What happens at your site? How many students? This is just fascinating. So fill the readers in now and what happens there. And I know it's wonderful things. Go for it.
We were so captivated that when we got the money from the legislature, we started contacting schools. But we were first captivated about different research that I want to talk about, the research is about music making, and it's neuroscience research. And so there are over 50 studies in about the last 10 years on how the brain processes sound. Auditory processing is highly correlated with reading achievement. Dr. Nina Kraus at Northwestern University has a lab there. It's an auditory neuroscience lab. These are researchers who study the brain and the effects of brain differences. They have found that if children cannot keep a steady beat, they call it synchronizing with the beat. So they're hearing music and they're tapping the underlying pulse. If they cannot do that, they almost always struggle with reading. Who knew? So I've met with Dr. Kraus. I'd love to do a study with her. It costs a lot of money, but they have documented that playing music enables auditory processing. And the better your auditory processing is, the better your reading scores. So they call it a foundational skill for the brain. keeping a steady beat. So based on the, how can you go up a year in reading achievement in 13 and a half hours on a singing-based software program, singing songs? It just doesn't make any sense unless there are changes in the brain. So that's my fascination, is the neuroscience is supporting all of this work. So based on that, we've worked with over 23 schools and over 2,000 children with those grants from the state legislature. We report to the Minnesota Department of Education. And our research, sorry, it's not research, our data, our data from Minnesota state reading tests affirms the research. And the most exciting thing is that children who use this singing software for at least 13 and a half hours definitely go up in reading. And it works best for the lowest scoring students. And the more they sing on it, the greater the gain. So we believe, there's no documentation, but we believe that what's going on is that this is an enabling of the brain. We're probably, the hypothesis is that the auditory processing neural network, and we all know that now, hopefully we all know that reading is not a separate thing. Language is not separate in the brain from music. They're overlapping. Dr. Anirudh Patel was the first one to really document this, neuroscientist, that overlapping and in some cases the same neural networks, singing and language, are interconnected in the brain. So based on all this research, we have been really pleased to see that it was statistically significant gains for the children, the students who used the Tune Into Reading, it's called Tune Into Reading software, for at least 13 and a half hours.
Okay, just who collected the data and analyzed it? Was it, or do they have vested interest, or is this an independent sort of thing?
We hired an independent data analyst. He now works for the University of St. Thomas. At that time, he was, the last couple of years, he was at a public school district. So he's a data analyst, and on his moonlighting time, he crunched our data and ran it through to see if it was significant. And in the year, we had 9 schools. That was our big year. We had 150 4th and 5th graders. That was on the state test from the year before they had done the singing and the year of it. So in 1 year, 1/3 of the students who were at does not meet on our state test proficiency went up to partly meets or meets.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that was statistically significant by our data analysts that we hired, contracted with to crunch the data.
Okay, now I've got the $1 million question for you.
Sure, thanks.
And I'm looking at the whole business of teacher training, advice for elementary teachers, and the rest. But before I have you get into that, just that for any of my readers out there who would happen to be a doctoral candidate or who would happen to be a research professor, I think there's somebody that might have some research, a research project for you, and her information will be on my site. This is just fascinating. We have to label it as the kind of thing where in writing workshop we talk about noticings. Well, this is a huge noticing, and if you've got a noticing, you act on it. So I'm hoping out there in Bomarito readership land, I hope that there are either a doctoral candidate or research folks out there that will get in contact with you. That's my extreme hope of one thing that might come from this. Now let's get back to my question, which is teacher training, advice for teachers. Talk to me about, does it have to be singing? What about Rosinski's repeated reading search, where you're reading poems and things like that have the beats and the rest? So if you're a teacher trying to take, and a lot of my readers are teachers that need something to take away on Monday. So give us some ideas about what you think about Rosinski and all those kinds of things, and especially give me something that my teachers can go on Monday and start doing.
I am such a fan of Dr. Tim Rosinski and his promotion of not only singing, but speaking, choral speaking over a steady beat. So rhymed poetry. And that's where nursery rhymes. So when you think about it, when I grew up, we were always outside jump roping, doing hand clapping. Miss Mary Mac, 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 all dressed in black, black, black. All of these games were over a steady beat. They developed the foundational skill of the brain's ability to keep a steady beat. And we're one of the few animals, mammals, that can do it. I think elephants have been documented to be able to keep a steady beat. Cockatoos, some birds. And so this is a very interesting phenomena. And so Dr. Tim gets that because he does a lot of chanting and singing so what I'd suggest, and I've been teaching a course called Want to Teach Reading and Math? Try Singing since 2005, and we've still been teaching in Minneapolis public schools, other school districts. Des Moines Public Schools had us come on a federal grant. And what we teach is singing games, not just singing songs, but singing games that have that whole element of the social emotional learning, getting partners. And there are thousands of singing games. And then keeping the beat, and then using those singing games to practice letter sounds, sight words, or fluency. So these are things that training the brain so that they're automaticity and retention. So we're building, we think, memory between auditory processing and memory. And so hopefully we're building a strong neural network of memory and retention. And so you play a game like, who stole the cookie from the cookie jar? Anne stole the cookie from the cookie jar. Who, me? Well, now you can take that same game and do, who stole the A from the cookie jar? You can have a cookie jar. Pull out the A. Who stole the A from the cookie jar? Who stole the B? Whatever it is. And so we take street games, tried and true with kids that they love to play, and we tweak them to practice what needs to, early skills, letters, sounds, and mostly it's auditory. But then we move to reading. And so you can then read these, who stole the cookie. But the big key is that the child must keep a steady beat. And you can read poetry, group choral reading. Who stole the cookie from, you can change where the beat is on the body. But it has to be tactile and has to be keeping that beat. It has to be practiced enough to build those neural connections.
Perfect. Okay, I'm looking at the clock, and we want to start wrapping up here. But I know that you've already sent me some things, the research things and the rest. Any of these activities that you've talked about, I'll make sure that they're in a folder that people can access on my blog. I really want to thank you so much for doing this, for being the first. You've done an amazing job. You've got me ready to do more things, and you know that I love singing, and I love poetry, and I love all those kinds of things. And I'm going to hit one last thing, and that is what you said about the nursery rhymes. We don't do those anymore, and we should be. And for people that are, besides the things that'll be on my blog, I would mention that Dr. Rosinski has a ton of stuff like that on his blog. And I would mention my very favorite keeping a beat kind of a person is Eric Litwin, who has a ton of things on his site as well, where they can do things. So just to put a couple of plugs in for friends of mine. But okay, any wrap-up thoughts here?
One more, same language subtitling. In India, Dr. Brish Kothari has done 20-some years of research on eye movement when people read. And they put same language subtitling on the bottom of the screen on Bollywood films, so dancing, singing musicals, and they light up right when they are sung. Inescapable reading behavior. The eye, even in a non-literate person in India, will follow the text as it lights up. It's like the eyes just have to do it. We have counterpart here. in the US. We have Disney sing-along songs. And this is a very fascinating thing to look into, Planet Read. So that's what it is. And we could do it right here. You could urge your students, you could use them as breaks. Put up a YouTube video that has a sing-along, you know, from Frozen or whatever, that has the words lining up right as they're sung. So just different strategies to get from the steady beat, the singing songs, then reading the songs, and then that's just one more strategy. Thanks.
Okay, well, we're back together again, side by side here, and this was just fascinating, and thank you so much for doing it. For my readers out there, boy, do you have some things to do on Monday. I've got some things to do on Monday. I know some places I'm going to go. If on those Planet Read things and the rest, if you could send me, you know, easy places, if you haven't already. I haven't. Okay, she sent me a bunch of stuff, folks, and I haven't actually had a chance to really look it over because we're kind of doing this as quickly as we can. So just way past, thank you so much. This has been just fascinating. And let's see, Dr. Sam will show off here for a minute. This is a slap clap, okay? Good readers are detectives. They use all the clues. Good readers are effective when the clues are used. And I got 1,000 of those. Okay, so been doing that for years and didn't know why it worked, but now I do. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Okay. So any last words here?
Contact me. I have my own website and then the Rock and Read website. We're in Minnesota as a nonprofit. There is a nonprofit, Sing Out and Read, in Florida. Other people could start nonprofits in their states. I think the whole pitch is it doesn't have to be software. This should start as, you know, prenatal, this steady beat thing, rocking the baby. So I have a rap, you know, mama, rock your baby so sweet. Sing along and sing a song and tap along on baby to the beat. It goes on like this. But the whole idea is to get the parents rocking those babies again, bouncing those babies.
Okay, well, rock and roll, huh?
Rock and roll and rock and read.
Rock and read. Okay, Maria, get the shorts. Rock and read. We'll leave off with that last thought.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and stay safe and thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Dr. Sam.